All right, welcome back to the studio. I have with me a guest who's come from a very far place to settle in Nigeria and do business with the aim of creating jobs and opportunities. He is an entrepreneur and an author. His name is Gerald Walker. Welcome to the show, Gerald.
Thank you very much.
All right, so you are an African American,
Yes,
living and doing business in Nigeria.
yes,
You were told you were crazy making that first trip down here.
yes,
Okay, now you have something to tell those people.
yes, very much.
Okay.
Yeah, when I first came, I came to this country. To be honest, I talked to some friends, and all of them thought I was crazy for coming here. Even some of my very good friends, they even laughed at me for coming to this country. But I came, and I actually saw for myself, because the myth is everybody here is fraudulent. You know, Nigeria is a bad place, and
The image is
and I was
bad
afraid,
out there.
and I bought into it because my first trip when I came and I got off the plane, and I was scared, and I called home and told my wife, "Look, I think I'm gonna catch a plane and come back tomorrow." But when I got to the hotel, the people were so very nice. I said, "Let me just see, just stay and see," and it was incredible. I stayed here 6 weeks, my first trip, and the people were so nice. It just blew me away. It took me all the way back to when I was in Louisiana, where I grew up at, because the culture
It's quite similar, right?
quite similar, yeah. So it was just amazing, and I fell in love with the country, and I've been here 4 years, almost 4 years now.
So that first trip changed your whole life.
Changed my whole life.
What was the process? I mean, this is a new environment for you, new people. Yes, you had a friend or two that talked you into this, but really, like, just let's get into why you decided to make that move. Like, what was it that pushed you?
In the U.S., I had a business in the U.S., and it kind of had took a turn. The business was down, so I said, you know,
This is a security business that you're into?
security company, and I'm looking at what I could do here versus what I could do in the U.S. And my friend convinced me to come here just to see it. When I came and saw,
What are you? Your friend's a Nigerian,
He's
right? I
Nigerian,
read your book.
yes.
Gerald is the writer of Why African Americans Fear Doing Business in Nigeria, and it's just out. It's launching next month, and in it you tell us about your Nigerian friend.
Yes.
Who you've been friends with for a very long time,
Almost 25
and
years.
you were talking with him and learning about Nigeria, and he convinced you to make the move. So tell us about that.
Yeah, we've been friends for about 25 years. We met right out of college. We started working for a company called Frito-Lay in U.S., and he's a chemist by trade. So he would always tell me about Nigeria, and to be honest, like most people, they never want to come to this country just to even see. But he finally convinced me to come here, and when I did, it's been life-changing, because being here in Nigeria, I could see that I grew up in the 60s and 70s, you know, so the
Turbulent
culture,
period.
the value that we had then is still here now in Nigeria. It hasn't changed, you know. In the U.S., especially for African Americans, the values have just completely gone out the window, to be honest, you know. But you still have those family values here in Nigeria. That's the first thing I fell in love with the country, you know. And but it's just been incredible for 4 years, you know. So I looked at the vehicles that I had in the U.S. that would get me to my goal the fastest way, and I found out being here, it was more opportunity than it is for an African American. It's more opportunity here than it is in the U.S. Way more opportunity, you know. And so I decided to come here and take advantage of that, you know. And it hadn't been easy. It's been very the first 2 years was very tough.
Yeah, you said like you after the 6-week trip, you went back and you tried to get financing from American companies to set up your business here in Nigeria, and that was next to impossible.
It was impossible, and it really opened my eyes how America look at Nigeria and actually other African countries. You know, I walk into the bank and I would say I want to get a loan on some trucks that I want to import to Nigeria, and it was just cut off right there. Nobody would talk to me. I went to several banks to try to get financing. I couldn't get financing to bring my trucks in. I had to go to a PO finance company that the guys knew me, and they actually gave me the loan to bring my trucks in. But the image, I began to see that the image of Nigeria, the way people looked at it, was very bad. So that's one reason I decided to write the book, because I don't see what they saying in the U.S., what the TVs, the media are saying. When I'm here, it's different. You know, I know it's bad people in this country, but in 4 years I hadn't met one.
Right.
To be honest.
Okay. So your aim of writing this book is to change the perception that people have of Nigeria, to change the image as well.
To change the image, that's one thing. Because when you go back, the questions that even when I speak at schools in the U.S., the questions that they ask me is just incredible because they don't understand Nigeria and Africa. They ask me what type of animals do I see in the country, you know. There's no animals here. I brought a couple of Caucasian guys here on my last trip, and they wanted to do a safari and see some animals. So I took them to the zoo in Abuja. And they said, "You taking us to the zoo?" I said, "Yeah, that's the only place you're going to see animals here." So that misconception in the U.S., especially among African Americans, you know, we're all black, but they don't understand the culture in the country, in this country. So I tried to explain a little about the culture and how to do business in this country. It's a different environment, so you have to have patience. You have to learn the system. So most people come here don't want to take the time to learn the system. They get frustrated,
right,
and they go back home.
Okay.
You know, but
we must admit the system itself is not exactly it's not exactly kind.
It's not kind.
That's the word. It's not kind. So. Yes, you might have that patience, but you must also know what you're coming to do.
You have to know what you're coming to do. You have to have a game plan, and I had a game plan. But just like playing in the sports, when you start playing, you got to know all the rules of that game. And it's no different with business. When you come in, you have to learn the rules, and you have to take the time to make the connections. Connections is the biggest part of doing business, and you have to take the time. That's the biggest part of doing business, is making the connections. Once the connections are made, it's easy, and you know the system. But this environment have taught me, especially about international business. Most people in the U.S., especially African Americans, don't understand international business and banking. You know, and U.S. also don't understand how strong the banks are in Nigeria. The banks now are very strong in Nigeria compared to 4 years when I came.
Okay. So eventually you got financing.
I got financing.
Can you tell us, you got it from Nigerian institutions?
I actually have my first 2 contracts I couldn't get financed. One was for one of the oil companies. I ended up having to finance that contract myself. I did it out of my own pocket with my armored truck business. I ended up getting the financing from a company out of New York that understood the Nigerian, how to do business in Nigeria. The intricacies of and they wasn't afraid to take a risk because the money was secure because it was an irrevocable letter of credit. So they understood that, and they gave me a chance. And after that, business just took off.
Okay.
It took off. So.
Okay. Now you speak of opportunities here. I mean, you're in a different position. You have, I guess, you may be able to leverage those opportunities that some of our viewers watching now don't have access to those opportunities. How can they tap into the opportunities that you, a foreigner, you've come from outside, and it's just right there, sitting right at you?
You know, looking at this, I was doing a radio show in Dallas, where I'm from. And I was talking about the book, and mostly people that call in, believe it or not, were Nigerians because they want to understand how to do business, to come back home and do business in their own country.
Because even Nigerians are scared of doing business here.
They're afraid, even Nigerians, and it blew me away, but they're afraid.
You know, you have, yeah, so how are you going to help change that too?
Basically, in the U.S., starting in October, I'm doing a 20-city tour to go around the U.S. to speak on my book. And to believe it or not, most of the requests I get to come speak is from the Nigerian community because they want to know how to come back home to do business.
Okay.
And Nigerians are afraid to come home, and that was just incredible because I go all over this country and have no problems, but they are afraid to come back home and do business. So my job is to go out and educate them, even the Nigerians, to educate them on how to do business in this country. You don't have to fear to come back home and do business in your own country.
Absolutely.
The opportunities are here. And I don't know if you ever heard of Disney World. The guy that created Disney World, that built it into $1 billion business, when he first started, he looked out into an empty field, and he told his friend that, "I see $1 billion business." His friend couldn't see it. He said, "Man, all I see is weeds."
Okay.
So he saw the vision. So when I came to this country, I saw the same vision. I saw
But you saw it from a different angle.
from a different angle.
Okay, all right. Well, if you want to hear more about Gerald Walker's story and you want to learn how he was able to maneuver and work around the system and make money, grab a copy of his book. It's called Why African Americans Fear Doing Business in Nigeria. You can recommend it for your families, your friends, and people, just read just to be informed as well. All right, well, we have to wrap up this segment. The show is today on STV. We'll take a quick break and we'll be right back.